Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, April 5th, 2017. I'm Lafern Fraser with the details. There is going to be a route and branch assessment of regional airline LIAT. That's according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who said that was the basic agreement coming out of Tuesday's meeting held in Barbados between the shareholder governments, directors, and employee representatives of the airline. Speaking on Star Radio earlier today, Prime Minister Gonsalves said the meeting was held to get the perspective of the employees, hear their challenges and difficulties in regards to management systems, structures, and personnel, which he noted were by and large quite severe. He added that the shareholder governments have agreed to partner with the Caribbean Development Bank, or the CDB, to create a technical committee to look at a number of issues within the airline's operation, business plan, projection, structures, and systems to see if any alternative institutional arrangement and modalities can be put in place.
But there would also be a task force appointed which this technical committee will feed into. The task force would be appointed by the shareholders. I will work with the president of the Caribbean Development Bank and whoever he designates. I'll work on behalf of the shareholder governments. We'll review the information, meet with in detail with other stakeholders, including all the employees, and naturally we'll find out things through from the management responses to some of the questions which have been raised by the employees, and also to talk to consumers. Week which ends after Easter Monday, in that week, I'm hoping that we can put together the technical team and the task force. And once those have been appointed, all the work to be completed within a 3-month period when the shareholders will reflect on this report.
While pointing out that substantial developmental work has been carried out by the shareholder governments on the regional carrier, Prime Minister Gonsalves said the airline is in a critical cash flow position, even as it had stabilized financially during the first 8 months of 2016. However, Dr. Gonsalves noted that network disruptions during the last quarter of 2016 into the first quarter of 2017 had weakened LIAT's financial position, causing an accumulation of negative impacts amounting to some $20 million.
And though we expect some improvement in the traffic over the Easter period, full recovery not expected until the summer months. And all these things have led to the management asking for a deferral of salaries. And just as a matter of interest, I was informed by management yesterday that the salaries for depending on which bank, the monies have been paid. So some get the money today, some will get it tomorrow. Questions raising about the operations of flight operations, both in respect of systems and personnel. Well, there's an interim suggestion which we have put in there in the mix, that we'll have somebody from the Pilots Association to be working directly with the Director of Flight Operation to deal with some of the scheduling issues, because there are lots of scheduling issues. There's a lot of wastage of money as a consequence of a screwed up scheduling. I'm urging people, let us just look soberly at it, and at the same time they're correct in demanding changes.
The Prime Minister further noted that some persons are quick to lose sight of the importance of sustainability of the airline and instead rely on passing blame on how the airline is being run.
They let LIAT go under. What will happen? Could you imagine a week without LIAT? We just have to be continuing to try to improve the airline and make it better. Because when people say, can we afford LIAT, I say, can we not afford it?
Exactly. Yes.
That is the question. We have an obligation to the people of the Caribbean, and I certainly have one, very especially to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think we can feel, St. Vincent and the Grenadines can feel justly proud of our own leadership and contribution to the reform of this airline and to its development.
Advocating the need for LIAT to no longer be subsidized by governments, former Prime Minister Sir James Mitchell said governments should stick to the business of the people who elected them. Sir James, who was speaking on Boom FM this morning, said the subsidy given to LIAT by the shareholder governments, including that of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is causing a financial strain on the region's economy. He said these governments instead need to focus more on the infrastructures that are necessary to promote overall development of their respective countries.
Not interested in government owning and operating. Government and prime ministers have no right being on any board of directors.
Okay.
You have other serious government things to look after, and you should, as a government, prime minister should be looking after the schools and the roads and health, and give those things your concentrated effort. I can see why we should continue forever to be propping up LIAT.
The former Prime Minister is of the view that once the private sector is given the full latitude, they would do a better job at making the airline industry thrive, as competition and discount deals would be created.
LIAT must get out the way of the private sector, and we should let the market work. Let the market work. Create a vacuum, because they have to do it sooner or later, and I agree with Stephen that there were people who were willing to do it. Why didn't we not let the Red Jet function? Why didn't we? Why did we? Right now, you have Air Carib in Martinique wants to come south into these islands. There are opportunities there in the private sector. We have to distinguish between government liability and what the people want as a service.
Yes.
I am very clear and unambiguous about that. And my policy has always been, and the policy I left with my NDP, is for pushing for the private sector involvement.
Sir James also called for the revamping of regulations governing aviation in the region, which he said are outdated.
Change of the regulations governing aviation in the Caribbean. We're not allowing commercial operations of single-engine aircraft. And single-engine aircraft are operating in the Northern Caribbean. But we sticking to old regulations and not allowing the new technology. Nobody has ever beaten the marketplace.
Okay.
Governments think, they believe they can outsmart the marketplace, but you can't. Eventually, you will lose.
Corned beef lovers here can now breathe a sigh of relief, as the temporary ban that was placed on the product originating from Brazil has been lifted with immediate effect. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Commerce earlier today issued a media release stating that a Jamaican technical team visited Brazil last week, where they inspected facilities which export most of the corned beef imported from Brazil, and that the facilities were found to be in compliance with international standards, hence their reason for the lifting of the ban. 2 weeks ago, this government, along with other regional governments, placed a temporary ban on beef and poultry products imported from Brazil in light of major meat packing businesses in Brazil bribing inspectors to get health certificates and masking tainted meat as fit for consumption. At the time the ban was instituted here, the Brazilian ambassador to SVG, Antonio Castro, said it was a harsh action and lamented that it was doing a disservice to customers. Selling alcohol to young people is abuse. That's according to the head of the Public Relations and Complaints Department of the RSVG Police Force, Inspector Hawkins Nanton. On NBC Radio's On the Beat program on Monday, where the panel dealt with the legislation relating to the use of alcohol, it was noted that this country is fourth in the Caribbean for the consumption of alcohol. Inspector Nanton warned that abuse is not just physical or verbal, but those persons who sell alcohol to underage persons are themselves committing abuse.
When shopkeepers across the country and mini-mart owners allow a child to purchase alcohol on behalf of a parent or a friend or whoever, some old person who may be a guardian or grandmother or grandfather, when parents who are on the other hand can send their child to the shop and purchase alcohol on their behalf, right there, they are having the kids indulge in an activity that is abuse.
Yes, it is.
So abuse is not just in the form of physical and in the form of verbal abuse. It also extends towards kids getting involved in activities that are illegal.
The head of the Public Relations and Complaints Department also expressed concern about the area under the bus stop near to the girls' high school, where he pointed out that numerous youngsters are often engaged in smoking and underage drinking.
That area in the vicinity of the agriculture girls' high school zone, they said that young people are there engaging in lots of activities, such as the consumption of alcohol, the smoking of marijuana, other illegal activities, fights, and the person emphasized the issue is that we have to be able to monitor the area because young people, students, whether from secondary schools to all the way to the college students, they are engaging in fights. And we have to be able to put a curb on the consumption of alcohol because it starts right there. Young people naturally can't handle alcohol at that level. Even older people can't handle it.
Seniors?
Seniors can't handle it when they overdo it.
Come on.
And we have to be able to sensitize our young people.
And Inspector Trevor Bailey said a person in any type of school uniform should not be sold alcohol. Bailey, who was a panelist on NBC Radio's On the Beat program, explained that under Chapter 473 of the Liquor License Act, laws of this country, a person wearing a school uniform should not be served an alcoholic beverage, even if they are over 18 years old.
A young person, as defined by the law, is a person under the age of 18, or a student in uniform, regardless of his age. So we have some person who say, I am my own man. I am 20, I am 21. But he is done in, let's say, in the college uniform. He cannot, or he should not be able to walk into a bar, sell me a beer, or let me a Guinness, and the bartender serve him. Both of them, they're committing themselves. So the bartender must be aware that he is committed himself, regardless of if he knows the age of the young man who he's serving. The mere fact that he is wearing his uniform, he cannot sell alcohol to that person.
A call has been made for more protective road rails to be constructed throughout this country. The call comes from lawyer Israel Bruce, who represented the driver in the rock gutter bus accident, which claimed the life of 7 students from Fancy. Bruce was at the time speaking to SVG-TV News on Tuesday via the telephone about the verdict in the court case in which the charge of involuntary manslaughter against his client was dismissed as the magistrate upheld their no-case submission. The legal counsel is of the opinion that too many of the roadways, particularly in rural areas, need protective rails, which he said could prevent accidents from being fatal.
And I trust that the state authorities would do that which is required, and that is to put in place the requisite barricades and barriers to help to protect the commuters from Fancy and surrounding villages from any future accident of this sort that could have loss of such epic proportion. And, of course, demonstrate love for the people of that part of the country. They deserve it, they're entitled to it, and so this is a call also on the state to do that which is necessary to show that the people of Fancy are important a people as any other people across St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
A call has been made for Vincentians to embrace one another more and celebrate when one succeeds. The encouragement comes from Vincentian-born international soca artist Kevin Little as he spoke at the signing ceremony at the Grenadines House on Tuesday of local rapper Akin Prez to his Tarracon record label, which he co-owns with his wife, Dr. Jacqueline James Little. Little noted that he has been doing his part to promote SVG and showcase the talent which can be found here, but noted that each Vincentian must support one another and avoid what he calls poking at each other.
If we don't embrace each other and stop poking at each other, we're gonna have a very difficult time of making ourselves become prominent and recognized. You know, so I mean, I fight it as much as I can to big up my country. I get on stage and I always talk about my country, and there's arguments about flags and all this kind of thing. But when are we gonna get past all these things? You know, does Rihanna put Bajan flags inside of her videos? Does Nicki Minaj put Trinidad flags inside of her videos? It's about the people, the culture. We have to embrace each other and love each other and show up for each other, represent. You know, but I'm there, I'm doing it, I'm letting the world know that St. Vincent is there. But you still get that fight because, and it's not a fight, you know, the people just do not know.
Also speaking on the issue of promoting SVG was Dr. Jacqueline James Little, who noted that SVG has a pool of talent which must be nurtured and developed. Dr. Little also took the opportunity to lash out at a particular local radio personality, and although not naming the person, she said he is the owner of the station and that his criticisms of their record label, Tarracon, and her husband are totally ridiculous.
Is known in Trinidad, but Kevin Little became the biggest. Labels are all over the place now. They come to Tarracon. There's something St. Vincent has that we need to cultivate, and at this point you say, wait a minute, St. Vincent has something, let's jump on this bandwagon. Instead, you get on the radio. As a matter of fact, as the owner, your conflict of interest of being on that station in the morning and opening your mouth without knowledge is ridiculous. You should be there saying, oh my goodness, Kevin Little is doing it again. Oh my goodness, look at what Mrs. Little is doing. Oh my goodness, look at where St. Vincent is going. The only reason anybody would want to do that to their country is because they believe that only them and people like them and people who look like them must have something.
Meanwhile, manager at Hot 97, Luke Boye, whom it was believed Dr. Little was referring to, said her attack against him is disingenuous and that she was being sensitive. Boye says that it seems that Dr. Little got offended over a simple question he asked, which was geared at finding out what benefits local performing artist Akin Prez Keyser would gain by signing with Tarracon Records.
But it was meant to be a question which would inform people as to what the benefits are of signing with the label are and how, you know, how they would grow as artists with the label. So do they get paid? Do they get paid a signing fee? Do they get their work with, you know, major producers paid for? Do they get access to collaborations with established international artists? You know, what are the mechanics of working on or signing with a label? Somehow, Jackie in particular, and to a lesser extent Kevin, have taken that as an attack on Tarracon. Now, I think that they're being a little bit sensitive, a little bit thin-skinned, and a little bit disingenuous.
Responding to the challenge of uplifting local artists, Boye highlighted some of what he and his station have been doing to promote local artists and noted that artists signed under Tarracon Records have enjoyed limited success.
Nobody does as many shows as Hot 97. There's nobody who features new artists as much as Hot 97. And yet somehow Kevin is this paragon of artist development. On top of that, Kevin has a number of artists already signed with him, and when you ask about what their success is, it's virtually non-existent. Kahelia Beach is with them, Madzart is with them. In actual fact, I think those artists have regressed under Terracon. So it was never meant to be any animosity with Jackie or Kevin, but it's turned into that, and so be it. It's not the end of the world, but they need to be a little bit clearer and straighter with their facts and stop trying to sell a label as the be-all and end-all, when in actual fact it doesn't guarantee or ensure any success to anybody. And if anything, it may well be just a justification for them to collect the signing fee from Sony, which in turn you would hope that they would share with the artists, but so far it doesn't seem as if they're doing that.
Boye added that he considered the accusation that he is engaged in some form of color bias against local artists as a cheap shot without facts.
I wasn't aware that there's been any color bias, whether it's be artists or whether it's promoters or advertisers. We deal with a cross-section of St. Vincent. So I'm not sure I was one of the people who was determined to see Skinny have success. Skinny, as far as I know, is black. For years and years, we've been pushing Prez's music. As far as I'm aware, Prez is black. So I think it's a cheap shot without any basis. But again, as I say, Jackie is thin-skinned. It's not the kind of language or the kind of sentiment I would expect from a chief executive officer of a company that's purporting to represent artists. And it's made without any basis or without any facts. But to each their own, I guess.
Newly re-elected president of the Public Service Union, Elroy Boucher, has expressed confidence in the new executive and said he expects great things from the persons who were elected to serve. Boucher told SVG-TV News that he is very satisfied with the outcome of the elections, noting that a second mandate as leader of the union indicates that the members are pleased with his leadership and that he is looking forward to working along with the other members of the new executive.
I am looking at this new executive really going out and perform. I expect the executive members to play the key role. The public relations officer, we have a young girl, Javel Frank. She's a radio personality already. She has a big role to play. We expect her to step into those shoes and fill them and get the work done. We have a new general secretary who is a nurse, and nursing have a lot of issues. So we are hopeful that with the GS, who is a nurse, we can tackle some of those issues affecting nurses. So we expect them to put a good plan in place and let us move the organization forward. Everybody hear about trade unions in the 21st century and how we have to retool. Well, we are very much aware of that. And this executive is a very competent and intelligent one. So I expect them to take the union forward by leaps and bounds.
When asked about the plans for the future of the PSU, Boucher said there are many issues on the table to be addressed.
We are embarking on a major project, that is the construction of the headquarters for the Public Service Union. We are placing a lot of focuses this time around on youths and women, and to that end we have more or less carved out a place on the executive for a women's rep and a youth rep, because that is important, recognizing that the public service, really the majority of persons workers are women, and a great majority of them are young people. So we need to get them involved in the trade union activities and that sort of stuff. We are also, we are dealing with a lot of issues relative to the government. There's the important subject of pension reform. The Prime Minister have indicated in his budget speech that he will be looking to implement the recommendations. For us, we don't even know what those recommendations are. So we have to be very engaged in that process. Before implementing, we would have hoped that he would be saying that he would be discussing the recommendations with the trade unions, because we're talking about pension for public officers. It's a very serious issue.